Hi everyone. Today in this video, I want to talk about the plant medicine path and specifically about trauma and the trauma narratives that move in the plant medicine circles. So the intention of this video is not to give you a lecture about trauma or how to deal with trauma, but more it's invitation to practice a bit of discernment about how you relate to all the information about trauma that is moving in these spaces online. There's a lot of people talking about trauma, and in the plant medicine circles, there's a lot of training and facilitation about trauma awareness and how to support people with this kind of scientific kind of understanding and perspective. And it's all very valuable and useful and supportive. But like any tool, if we don't know how to use it mindfully and with clear intention, it can actually also cause harm, just like a knife or artificial intelligence or anything else that we interact with and relate to. So I myself have received training in trauma-informed plant medicine facilitation, and I've also received support from a trauma-informed uh, therapist who has supported me a lot in my journey of healing and awakening and transformation. And this kind of like paradigm and framework that comes from this kind of scientific approach to understanding the human body, the nervous system, psychology, human behavior is very helpful and useful and can bring a lot of support for us in our life. I've also noticed that it's possible to misuse the information that comes our way about trauma. So I'd like to speak a little bit about that because I think especially in the plant medicine spaces where a lot of us uh, or a lot of people go into those spaces from in a vulnerable, open space, seeking support and assistance. Sometimes these trauma narratives can actually, cause harm as well. And my intention is to provide resources for people who are entering these plant medicine spaces or navigating through them or working with the plant medicines to bring a bit more awareness so that we can be more discerning and have more agency in choosing how we relate to all the information that is out there, to all the energies that are out there. Because we're all human beings. We are all souls born onto this earth who are navigating a journey of learning and evolution and experience. All of us come with our backpacks of conditioning and experiences that we have experienced in our lifetime or that we have inherited from our parents and our ancestors. So being a human being is very complicated and it's very nuanced, and we're constantly relating to our environment, to what we're feeling inside us, what we're experiencing, what we're witnessing, and all of these aspects that make us human. It's very difficult to take them all into account in some kind of scientific framework that tries to put everything in a defined box. So I just want to bring that out in the beginning to kind of set the stage and kind of invite ourselves to bring in a bit of like humility and maybe curiosity into this discussion and this conversation instead of trying to find one perfect answer that applies in every single situation, or this kind of desire to be able to kind of control and explain everything. Because that is also, in a way, a coping and survival mechanism. We live in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties. Plant medicine spaces almost like magnify this because, when we work with plant medicines like ayahuasca, they kind of like open up our energies, our sensitivity. We become super sensitive and aware and conscious. And in those kinds of spaces, it can feel destabilizing for our minds, and our bodies and our nervous systems can feel this kind of yeah, a lot of energy moving around, a lot of our stories and narratives and our conditions, our belief systems are being challenged when we step into these plant medicine spaces. And in general, when we choose to walk this path of spiritual awakening or healing process, as many of us call it. So that process, when we start to question the stories and the belief systems that have really been protecting and defending us, when they get challenged, that is a very kind of delicate space in a situation where our bodies can naturally feel a little bit threatened. It feels naturally unsafe, and it's totally normal. And then our kind of biological defense and protection mechanisms kind of come online. So that could be like, you know, the desire to control things, to be aware, to manage things, or to fight things, or to try to avoid and escape, to deny. Or we might go into this kind of people pleasing, try to make sure that everyone's happy and the environment is totally like, you know, perfect, so that no one would be challenged, and so that everything can be, you know, it's nice and smooth and easy so that we can feel more comfortable. Or we might just like collapse and just like get totally overwhelmed and not like know how to respond to the things that are arising. So these are all like totally natural biological processes. And what I've noticed in over the years as I've been exploring the subject of trauma, how easy it can be to use this kind of trauma jargon, the trauma language, to kind of use it in a controlling way, either to micromanage and control spaces and situations, or to project judgment onto other people, to create and maintain these kind of power dynamics where you know, we use this kind of trauma awareness to judge other people for not being as aware or as conscious or as spiritual or as informed as we are. We can also use it in a weaponizing way to attack and judge other people, to shame other people. And these are all kind of natural responses also when we do feel threatened, so or when our wounds get triggered. So I just feel an importance of bringing these perspectives into the kind of arena, because as I'm married to an indigenous man from the Brazilian rainforest. He's a Honey Queen Indian, and in my relationship with him, where him and his community, his family, his society, they have certain kind of survival mechanisms that they have been adapted to, or survival mechanisms that work in the situation and the environment and the conditions that they live in. And many of these kind of behavioral patterns and the social norms that they practice are things that we also carry, that we've inherited from our ancestors who grew up in smaller communities. And these are very ingrained in us, I think. And now that many of us live in these kind of urban settings, maybe with more separation, less connection, less kind of like reliance on other individuals, maybe more reliance on this kind of bigger system where we buy stuff and, you know, get a lot of information for free, and, you know, are giving things, you know, the way we interact on social media, for example. So the way that our society and culture has transformed and changed over the last decades, or even years, few years, decades, constantly evolving and changing. but we still carry these um, kind of social norms and survival mechanisms that have been really important for us and our ancestors. They have been, ways that have brought us into where we are now. And as so many of us are feeling these days, we feel like a huge disconnection, and like a dis-ease within ourselves because of this lack of connection with ourselves, with our families, with our partners, with our children, with the nature, with greater, kind of source or God or spirit, whatever we want to call it. And this disconnection is causing a lot of like a huge sense of lack of safety for so many of us. We feel very unsupported and unheld when we end up in this kind of individualized kind of way of living. And I'm noticing how like this kind of trauma narratives, when we talk about like the dangers of codependency or people pleasing or you know, yeah, especially those are concepts that I've noticed that they can actually, like when we kind of like pathologize these natural kind of mechanisms that support our social cohesion, it actually can create more separation and more polarization. And I feel or I'm noticing in my own path how I'm needing to kind of like deconstruct and unlearn some of these like trauma narratives in order to be able to take better care of my relationships and myself as well. So it's not always so black and white, and it's not always about me versus you or them versus us. That actually, I feel a resonance with trying to like open up the playing field more to this kind of humility and understanding that we're all humans. We don't have to be perfect, and we're allowed to, be wounded and scarred from our past experiences and from the experiences of our ancestors. That it's not something that we should need to be afraid of or ashamed of as well. And I think it's often like there's maybe we get fed, stories that make us think that we're somehow less or that there's something wrong with us because we feel a certain way or we react a certain way or because we are a certain way. Um, but but what if it's actually totally normal? It's totally natural. It's totally human. What if we're allowed to be, uh, all of that? And as I've noticed in my path, in my journey, that, as we start to release some of the old suppressed emotions, there's been a lot of control in our society and our families, maybe also that has, if we've not been offered a space where we've been able to like meet and move our emotions, then there's a lot of stuff like stuck in us. We're like held by all these rules, and in order to like come out and step into our true authenticity and to be able to share our gifts in the world and like feel like we belong and like there's meaning, we have meaning, we need to kind of like get rid of all that, those old stories, those old limitations. And when they come out, it is messy. We might rage, we might cry, we might blame someone, we might, blame ourselves, like all those, that stuff like comes out. But I notice, or like for me, like the biggest transformation has been when I've been willing to like look in the mirror and admit, like where I act as maybe like a bully or where my behaviors have been narcissistic and where, I have done something wrong. So like that's where I have agency, where I can do something about what, you know, I notice in myself. I cannot like change someone else. I cannot control all the dictators of the world. I cannot like control what the government does with my money. I cannot control what my partner does on their free time or what they look at on their phone or who they talk to and what they feel. And I cannot control my children or my parents, and their political views. Uh, so the only thing I can do is kind of look inside and try to find ways to live in alignment with my own values. So this whole conversation just kind of like shifted from what I had planned, which is wonderful, I think. Uh, but so I think in general, like what I wanted to bring out here and share in this video is that let's be mindful that there's a lot of like information out there, like in the plant medicine circles and spheres of like trying to tell us like how things should be done, how healing happens, and what's the correct way to do it, what's the incorrect way, what is dangerous, what is not. And life is dangerous. Where we come here, birth is dangerous. We're all meant to leave and die one day. You can try to live as healthy as and to with the intention of living as long as possible. But when death comes, it comes, and it can come really surprisingly. So out of the blue. And I've heard so many stories of like people like super healthy, unexpectedly just dying. So like even in the plant medicine ceremonies, accidents happen, just like accidents can happen when you go to the store or to work or to school on the playground. So the plant medicine circle spaces are not like exceptionally dangerous as far as I understand. Okay, it might be like there might be intense stuff happening, but if we can relate to it in a safe way and support each other rather than being scared of each other and create, because that's where like a lot of the danger comes in, is like when we start to like be afraid and control and like judge, because all those like judging, controlling thoughts and energies, they actually create more confinement, more fear, and they escalate the energies. So how can we bring this trauma awareness into our lives with more presence and in a more kind of like resourceful way, to learn how to understand how our nervous system operates, how our mind and our actions might uh, follow what we experience when our nervous system is like reading the environment and the energies. How can we support ourselves so that we can be present in a way that is supportive for the space where we are, whether it's in the plant medicine circle or at home with our family or with ourselves when we're having a difficult experience. So rather than getting sucked into these like trauma stories, which can get us spiraling into like getting stuck in the past and stuck in kind of like toxic ways of relating where we're blaming and judging our family members or ourselves or the world or the government or whatever for our problems and our discomfort. What if actually it's much more beneficial, for ourselves and for the world if we learn how to use this information that we get from science to kind of learn how to take better care of, to be more understanding, more compassionate towards ourselves and each other, to use those as resources that support us rather than using them as weapons to attack ourselves and each other. In my understanding, most of us, if not all, I don't know, maybe, well, I can't speak for everyone, but so many people just want the best for themselves, for their families, for the world. And then we get like attached to all these like ideas of how we think that we can create that solution. Yet we live in a world where there's so many different interpretations of everything. And then we all kind of come in there and try to give our advice and our piece of wisdom, to tell others how to live life and do things. So even so there's no like judgment to any of us who maybe have been using these trauma narratives in a way that, you know, might not always be very constructive or beneficial. So there's no shame or no judgment if you recognize yourself in some of the stuff that I've been speaking about. I certainly have recognized myself, and doing things, you know, blaming others for being narcissistic, and then actually realizing that I'm like the most super manipulative, and especially like, you know, people who have a strong intellect, who are very intelligent, our mind can be really good at like, you know, recognizing the weak spots in others and then using all this intellectual knowledge we have to like explain or you know, try to fix the other person or make them understand what's wrong with them. But really, that is in a way an energetic boundary violation. And really, the art of living, as I understand, in a harmonious way, in a balanced way, is learning how to keep our eyes on our own paper, to take care of our own responsibilities, our own business, and learn how to like navigate and live together in this world where there are so many different opinions and ways of doing things. And how can we still live together in connection and collaborate and co-create and support each other, because none of us will survive here on our own. I mean, just think about your own life and where you are. Like, how many people are you know, making your life possible? You know, the who's helping to create the where does your water come from? Where does your trash go? Where does your food come from? You know, your mobile phone, your everything. Who created, yeah, the technology that makes this conversation possible. So really, I understand that we're living in a time where we've been kind of like really separated from each other and from life and from nature, and we're in a time when we are being invited, you know, we're realizing that we need to come back, that we're not like managing on our own. And we've learned to be afraid of each other. We've learned to be afraid of nature. We've learned to be afraid of the medicines. We've learned to be afraid of our body. We've learned to be afraid of our nervous system. We've learned to be afraid of our mind. We've learned to be afraid about everything. And yeah, discernment is really about learning to maybe pause and create this kind of like felt sense of safety inside our body. Because it's like when we're safe, when we feel safe, when our body feels safe, then we can open up to like curiosity, maybe to get honest about ourselves and like recognize, you know, where maybe our mind and our behaviors and our emotions are maybe not actually supporting us, or the whole collective in the best way. And and then from there we can seek out and look for the new solutions and ways of relating and creating the change that we want to see. So I'm really grateful for everything that I've learned through all the wonderful people who have that researched our bodies and our minds, and this whole trauma created this whole trauma narrative and paradigm, or whatever we want to call it. But I'm also, you know, inviting us to bring this kind of discernment and this recognition that there are very many other systems in place. It's not just the scientific model that is right. In the plant medicine realms and spaces and ceremonies, there's a lot of energies and a lot of each one of us has our own life experience that is unique, our own ways of understanding, our own memories, our own relationships with different kinds of social constructions, systems, families, cultures, belief systems, different ways of relating to the mystery of life. So, really, I feel like in order for us in the West to not kind of like colonize the plant medicines, it's important to like acknowledge and give space also for these other kind of energies and ways of experiencing uh, life and the work with the plant medicines. So so my invitation is to open this conversation so we can be a bit more uh, mindful about how we bring this understanding, this knowledge, these resources into the spaces that we walk into, and maybe for if there are any facilitators listening to this video, to maybe bring this kind of perspective also into your work with the plant medicines and the spaces that you hold. That it's important to not, it's very easy to like project our own understanding on others. I've noticed, for example, that it's very easy to throw around these words like gaslighting and spiritual bypassing and all of that. But sometimes spiritual bypassing, might some well, what I've understood uh, that there is this kind of there can be this kind of there can be this kind of tendency that people who are on the spiritual path and like into shadow work, uh, whenever they notice that someone else is not kind of like taking responsibility for their stuff, it's easy to judge them as bypassing. At the same time, I've noticed in my relationship with my Honey Queen family that they generally tend to avoid discussing difficult things. And, for me, as someone who likes to get to the core of the thing and know the truth and, understand, it's been a really big challenge for me kind of learning to let go of the need to always like go into the deep dark stuff and like find the culprit and the cause and all of that. And I've learned in my own process also that actually a lot of times this kind of spiritual healing and energetic healing, we don't need to go and dwell on the past, understand every single detail and who's to blame and to find someone to punish and to take responsibility. That actually the process of transformation and healing, it doesn't require that we bypassing maybe there's a space where there's an importance of taking responsibility, but the responsibility is to look in the mirror and look at what our part is in it. If we use the word bypassing to judge someone else, then we're just like uh, projecting a shame on someone else. What do we know? What lessons they are learning from the experience? So and actually, what I've understood with my Honey Queen family is that sometimes it's like it's really important to protect our own energy, our own space, our own time by not getting involved in other people's drama and not taking on like other people's stuff. And that actually helps us to stay more connected, more aligned, more sovereign, more available to help and support ourselves and others when we don't take on other people's stuff. And so just because we choose to not get involved, perhaps so intensely in someone else's drama, doesn't mean that it's the same as bypassing. So, there's really many ways of like interpreting the words, and in these trauma circles, it can be really easy to, latch on to these trendy, hot, strong words and like use them as like, weapons to protect ourselves or to attack others when we feel threatened, when we feel unseen, when we feel unheard or misunderstood. So, yeah, these are big topics and can be interpreted from so many lenses, and each one of us hears what we hear, and we don't hear what we're not ready to hear, and that's totally fine and okay as well. So I just want to remind you once again that I'm just here speaking about what I've been noticing and what's been moving in my journey. And there's no, you know, I don't claim to know anything about your situation or what the best way is. But I'm just inviting some more discernment, some more self responsibility for all of us here as we walk together here on this earth and planet. So I want invite you to receive whatever supports you in this moment and to just let go, ignore whatever is not relevant for you at this time. So each one of us, as I've noticed that on the spiritual path, there are many phases on the spiritual path. Just like a child or a person who walks through life, there's infant, toddler, and young child. Then we go into puberty and adolescence and young adulthood, and then middle age, and then we come into like our elder wisdom years. So there is no judgment, and each part of that journey is important and relevant for the overall evolution. So when if you are identifying yourself as being in a stage where you might be using these, you know, different tools in ways that maybe are not so pretty or kind, that's part of the process, and it's it's difficult and it's messy. I've been there and I still go there sometimes, but maybe if we can release kind of like the judgment towards ourselves and each other about the process and the journey, then maybe we create a bit more of a spaciousness and like this, a better held container as our world is collectively going through like this big purge and like releasing a lot of stuff as we're collectively together evolving and changing and transforming. So I'll be talking more about how to connect with our body and practice this kind of discernment and sovereignty, and uh, how to navigate the plant medicine path with greater confidence and clarity and safety, on a course that I've been working on for a long time now, and I've been speaking about it for ages. And part of me feels like an imposter, or am I credible or reliable because I'm taking so long in bringing it out. But there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, a lot of technology and business related stuff to learn. So it's on its way. Please be patient. But if it's something that resonates, if what I'm speaking about, sounds somehow interesting or supportive, then please stick around, subscribe to the channel, join my newsletter, which is, you'll find the link in the description section below, because that's really the best way to stay in touch, because I notice like all these algorithms on social media are really unreliable for maintaining connection. So if you want to stay in touch and know about the offerings that I'm going to be releasing and coming out with, make sure to join the newsletter. That's the best way to stay in touch and know more. And so, yeah, stick around. Let's journey together. And curious to hear if you want to share any insights that you got from this video. The space in the comments is open for you to share. Uh, for our own integration process, I've understand, so that we kind of like anchor the insights that we get. It's good to like write them down or to say them out loud. Share the insight with someone that you know, or or write it in the comments, or write it in your journal, just to like receive the thing that you got, so that you can bring maybe that awareness into your day-to-day life in a more concrete way. So yeah, if that's something that would support you, I would love to hear what you got out of this video. And also, if there's some topics that you want to hear more about, please share, because it's much more meaningful for me to like speak about things that you might be curious to know more about. So, wishing you a good day, evening, morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening to this, and catch you later. Thanks.